Summary: Abundance by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson. #1 New York Times bestseller. Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson's Abundance is compelling manifesto that seeks to reorient the political imagination of the United States. From culture mired in scarcity, gridlock, and caution to one powered by growth, dynamism, and building, the authors, both celebrated journalists and policy thinkers, argue that the defining crises of 21st century American life, housing unaffordability, labor shortages, climate inaction, institute dysfunction, stem not from lack of ideas or money, but from deep failure to build. Through sweeping historical, political, and economic narrative, Abundance charts how America's once proud ambition to do big things was slowly hollowed out by bureaucracy, overregulation, and mood of cynicism. Yet the book is not merely diagnostic. It is also hopeful, generational call to action to revive politics of possibility. 1. A nation that stopped building. The central thesis of Abundance is that America is suffering from self-imposed scarcity. It is not scarcity of resources, knowledge, or desire, but scarcity of permission and political will. The first chapter's present vivid picture of a nation that, after decades of underbuilding and overregulating, has left its people with too little housing, too few workers, and not enough infrastructure to meet the future. The authors chart roots of this paralysis: failure to build sufficient homes in cities of opportunity, a resistance to immigration that has choked off labor supply, a climate movement that ironically slows down clean energy projects through environmental lawsuits, and public works initiatives that die in endless cycles of permitting, litigation, and political posturing. Ambitious government projects either never launch or suffer chronic cost overruns and delays. In their words, didn't build enough. And we still don't. This moment, they argue, is not the result of singular villains, but of accumulated caution. The regulations that were designed in the 1960s and 1970s to protect communities and ecosystems have become the very tools used to stymie progress. The laws meant to consider the consequences of government action now make it nearly impossible for the government to act decisively at all. 2. The unseen cost of scarcity. Klein and Thompson examine how the scarcity mindset permeates nearly every level of American life. They reveal how legal, cultural, and political systems, many created with good intentions, have produced paradox. The nation that built the Hoover Dam and landed man on the moon now can't finish subway line without tripling the budget or delaying it for decades. Housing emerges is Exhibit A, America's housing crisis, not primarily caused by market forces, but by deliberate choices to restrict building. Through local zoning codes, land use regulations, and citizen vetoes. From San Francisco to New York, NIMBY politics dominate, preventing dense, affordable housing from being constructed in areas where jobs and infrastructure already exist. The result: rising rents, homelessness, and stagnation in social mobility. Immigration, once a key engine of American innovation and growth, is treated with mistrust rather than strategic enthusiasm. With aging populations and declining birth rates, the U.S. needs more people to work in healthcare, construction, agriculture, and STEM fields. That labyrinth of immigration restrictions makes legal entry nearly impossible for many willing workers. This is not merely a moral failure, the authors argue. It's an economic and civic one. On climate, the authors highlight painful irony. Even as Americans increasingly agree on the threat of climate change, they have built far too little of the infrastructure needed to combat it. Building wind farms, solar grids, and high-speed rail requires cutting through the same red tape that halts housing. Ironically, environmental regulations are now often used to prevent or delay environmentally necessary infrastructure. The conclusion of this section: sobering, America's systems are designed to stop bad things from happening, not to make good things possible. The scarcity crisis is self-inflicted, and the opportunity costs are immense. 3. The roots of institutional paralysis. Klein and Thompson explore how the country arrived here. The road to dysfunction, they argue, is paved with well-intentioned laws, risk aversion, and deep mistrust of institutions. In countries scarred by Vietnam, Watergate, and 9/11, Americans have become skeptical not just of power but of action. The modern liberal project, once defined by bold initiatives like the New Deal and the Great, has become one of defense and protection, trying to preserve the gains of the past rather than build better future. Meanwhile, conservatives have not offered viable alternative. Many embrace austerity and market fundamentalism while demonizing the very institutions needed for large-scale progress. The result is politics in which liberals are reluctant builders and conservatives are proud dismantlers. The author's identity. Autocracy political culture where stakeholder has veto power, but no one has the responsibility or authority to deliver. Courts can block, activists can sue, regulators can stall, but rarely can anyone build. Projects die in the details. The capacity for vision has been supplanted by culture of caution and complaint. 4. Solutions. The politics of abundance. Having established the problem, the second half of Abundance lays out path forward. Klein and Thompson do not argue for reckless deregulation or blind growth. Instead, they advocate for new liberalism of ambition, one that retains the protections of the past while reforming the processes that now prevent progress. The Abundance agenda includes 5 core principles. We should build more, not just in how, but in energy, transit, education, and care. Public investments must be accelerated through smarter, more flexible systems. Infrastructure should be seen as foundational, not optional. We should welcome more. Immigration should be seen not as burden, but as competitive advantage. More people mean more ideas, more labor, more innovation. The demographic challenges ahead require an immigration policy that is humane and expansive. We should simplify more. Permitting an environmental review must be streamlined. Not gutted, but modernized. The authors propose sunset clauses for regulations, fast-track pathways for high-priority projects, and clearer federal preemption rules to override obstructionist local authorities when needed. We should believe more. Americans need to recover faith in the capacity of public institutions to deliver outcomes, not just process. The book for cultural change, shift in how we talk about government, projects, and policy. Confidence is contagious and essential. We should govern with results. Abundance politics requires new accountability, not just for stopping harm, but for producing benefits. Politicians should be rewarded not for preserving the status quo, but for breaking through bottlenecks and getting things done. The authors highlight promising examples, such as New York's zoning reforms, Canada's points-based immigration system, and Sweden's success in building energy infrastructure, as models of how abundance can be more than a slogan. A mood shift in American politics. In the final chapters, Klein and Thompson explore the emergence of what they call the abundance movement, loosely aligned coalition of politicians, technocrats, builders, and thinkers from across the ideological spectrum who are reimagining what is possible. From centrist mayors to progressive EMBs, yes, in my backyard, the movement shares one conviction: America must start building again. They caution against turning into technocratic exercise alone. Abundance is not merely policy framework. It is mood. It is about hope, confidence, and forward motion. The book ends with passionate defense of ambition. Scarcity tells us to settle. Abundance dares us to dream. This new mood, the authors argue, must be rooted in honesty. It must acknowledge the very real anger many Americans feel at high costs, stagnant wages, and failing systems, but redirect that toward construction, not destruction. Inclusion, the courage to build. Abundance is not naive. Klein and Thompson understand that politics is messy, that interests conflict, and that institutions resist change, but they insist that the current trajectory is unsustainable. The choice, they write, is not between change and stasis, but between intentional transformation and managed decline. They close with call to readers, policymakers, and citizens. Reject the scarcity mindset. Politics said yes. Build more homes. Welcome more people. Green the grid. Shorten the lines. Deliver the goods. The challenges of the 21st century demand not more caution, but more courage. Society that doesn't believe it can build doesn't just lose the ability to build, it loses the ability to imagine. And without imagination, there's no progress, only preservation and decline. Final thoughts. In moment dominated by polarization, fear, and delay, abundance is bold and timely call to rediscover the American spirit of possibility. Klein and Thompson don't merely diagnose what's broken. They chart path forward. Their message is clear. It's time to build.